The transfer portal officially closes this weekend. Where do the Vols stand in terms of departures and arrivals? That and a whole lot more. It is your Friday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Friday morning, good Friday afternoon, whatever time this actually uploads. Uploading this episode here on a Friday, a couple hours late, not overnight, around the late morning, early afternoon time here on a Friday because, of course, the holiday schedule a little wacky here, but did want to get something out there. Appreciate you guys tuning in and making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single morning. Hey, I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas. I know I was #blessed. I spent 3 days with different parts of my family, and it was a lot, but it was a whole lot of fun. So much to be blessed with. So I had a great week. I hope you guys did as well. Hope your children, if you have children, I hope Santa was awesome to them, and I hope that they were grinning ear to ear all Christmas season long. So appreciate you guys, and many, many blessings to your family. Gonna have a conversation with Boog Bentley, the Talking Vols Network, segments 2 and 3, kind of tying a bow on this season and successful stuff, looking back to Ohio State, looking ahead to the portal. Some conversations with Boog Bentley here in segments 2 and 3. Going to look at the transfer portal and Tennessee's action in that so far, and all that and more here on a Friday show where we give a big shout out to FanDuel Sportsbook, where it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel. It's new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's at FanDuel.com to get started today. All right, so what has Tennessee done in the transfer portal so far? Well, we know Wendell Moy Jr., the offensive guard from Arizona, has transferred into the University of Tennessee. He has given Tennessee his commitment. Tennessee was wanting to attack the interior, of the offensive and defensive lines, and so Tennessee has addressed that with a guard right now, Wendell Moy Jr. It's spelled like Mo, but it's pronounced Moy, like Jackson Moy. So that's good. He was a second-team All-Pac-12 back in 2023. He's played a whole lot of snaps. And that's a guy that's going to, hopefully, you would assume, going to be signed to come and plug and play at one of the guard spots where Tennessee, as of now, of course, is losing Javonte Spraggins, we know that, but as of now, is losing Andre Carrick. Andre Carrick, of course, appealing for another year of eligibility, and the rate things are going. I mean, why wouldn't he win, right? I don't see how he could win, but why wouldn't he win? Because nobody can not beat the NCAA right now, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Knock on wood. Josh Thompson, very, very close to committing to the University of Tennessee. A couple of days ago is actually Christmas Eve, and he is the guard from Northwestern. LSU's in that conversation. South Carolina, Ole Miss, some other SEC schools are in that conversation at the time of this recording, along with Tennessee. It felt like it was trending very much in the right direction earlier in this week. Right now, it doesn't feel as good as it once did, but still, there's some dialogue with the University of Tennessee, so we'll see where that one goes the rest of the day today and over the weekend. But obviously, Tennessee is looking at the interior of the offensive and defensive lines. Now, Tennessee obviously has lost some players as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players via the transfer portal, okay? So Tennessee has 11 scholarship losses. There's been a couple of other ones like Gaston Moore, who entered the transfer portal earlier this week, and he's a walk-on, so he's not on the official scholarship loss list, right? But he was your backup quarterback, and Gaston Moore's the guy that played some football for you this year, and Gaston Moore was a great security blanket. He just wants to play football, man, and I think he wanted to leave this time last year, but Tennessee talked him into staying because they needed some insurance behind a first-year starting quarterback in Nico Iamaleava. They needed a guy that knew the system, a guy that was capable of running the system, and a guy that had the tools and the whereabouts to play well if needed. And I think he proved that, against Mississippi State and some other points in the season where he had to come in and kind of relieve Nico. Best of luck to Gaston Moore, man. I hope he goes and balls out. I've seen a lot of talk on the GQ or on social media saying, hope he's a group of 5 Jameis Winston. Just let that sucker fly on Uncle Rico style, right? I love how they just let Gaston just chuck that ball down the field. So hopefully he goes, and best of luck to him. Wish him nothing but the best. I do. But he's not one of those scholarship losses, but still kind of a bigger loss. Holden Stays has entered the transfer portal this week, or has announced intentions to enter the transfer portal this week. How big of a loss is that? Well, Miles Kitselman is likely coming back. because of course, the ruling of all these JUCO players have another year of eligibility for this season because Diego Pavia sued the NCAA, so that opened the floodgates for a lot of junior college players who were out of eligibility to get another year. So Miles Kitselman is all but certainly coming back, at least is what it feels like right now. And you have Ethan Davis still here, so Holden Stays is going to skedaddle out. And, of course, he came in via the transfer portal from Notre Dame at this point in time last year, and now he's leaving. So, not a huge loss, but a guy that played a lot. Jason Jenkins was in the portal last year for like 24 hours, jumped out of the portal. In the portal now, Jason Jenkins, one of those many, many guys who's on the defensive line for Rodney Gardner. I think he's going to be a good player. I do. I think he made the most of his playing time this year. But again, I'd love for him to stay, but he's not a guy that is a massive, massive loss simply because you play a lot of numbers at the position. Christian Harrison entered the portal during this season or over the past week, and though he lost his starting job, right, to Boo Carter, I thought Christian Harrison played good football this year. And I wish the best for him because I think there's a lot of athletic ability there. And I thought Christian Harrison just got better and better as the year went on. Cam Selden into the portal, we know that. Nathan Leacock, Chaz Nimrod, Khalifa Keith, Vyson Lane, Caleb Webb, Jordan Matthews, Jalen Smith, who entered the portal and has since committed to Mississippi State. Jordan Matthews, who entered the portal and has since committed to Vanderbilt. Caleb Webb, who entered the portal and has since committed to Maryland. He once time committed to Wake Forest, but then with the change of the head coach, decommitted and has since committed to Maryland. So that's kind of where we are right now. Tennessee, obviously, we'll see what happens with Josh Thompson. Tennessee's going to need to target wide receivers in the transfer portal. I think Tennessee's going to look at a running back. Tennessee, of course, is not going to say no to a defensive lineman. But right now, you have teams around the SEC who continue to add. And Tennessee, that was in the college football playoffs, lost and then came back, and it was Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Oh, yeah, your roster's asking for raises and you're trying to battle to keep guys on your roster. Tennessee's kind of behind the eight ball a little bit and trying to get players to campus. There's a dead period right now, but get players to commit to the University of Tennessee. So I'm intrigued to kind of see where all this goes here in the coming days. I know the transfer portal will officially close at the end of this weekend. That means you have to be in. You don't have to select where you're going, but you have to be in the portal. So it feels like right now, at the time of this recording, things can always change. But it feels like right now Tennessee's kind of survived a huge hit. I mean, you're going to lose some guys. That's just part of it. It feels like Tennessee has survived a huge hit of losses, especially to key players via the transfer portal. So we'll see if it stays that way. Hey, when we come back, we'll get into our part one of my conversation with Boog Bentley. All that and more right here on a Friday morning edition of Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about that you were paying for twice? It definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's your subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 in a year when using the app's premium features. So, cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That is rocketmoney.com/lockedon to save today. Boog Bentley, man. Hey, hope you had a Merry Christmas. How was Christmas the last couple days with the family and the kids?
Good stuff, man. Fantastic. Santa came, Santa went. Portal Chaos season is here. But great Christmas. Great Christmas.
I'm glad you brought that up. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about that here today, but I mean, isn't it crazy? I mean, Tennessee was expected a transfer portal commitment at noon on Christmas Eve. And then the phone starts buzzing for him, and now we don't know if Tennessee's, at the time of this recording, we don't know if Tennessee's going to get said kid. But the fact of the matter is, it was business, not even as usual, as business ramped up on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I hate a lot about this calendar. I hate that the most. I mean, this is just wild. I mean, it's truly incredible the times we're living in college athletics.
Yeah, and throw it on top of it. Like people saying, I get it. I get maybe some of the panic, maybe a little bit of the panic. You've added one guy on the interior, but in the grand scheme of things, Tennessee was preparing for a college football playoff game, and we're wondering why we're not doing enough in the portal. Well, we're still playing football. We were still in the mix. We were still in the fight. So you got Christmas, you got the college football playoff. Meanwhile, guys are coming and going in complete chaos. They've got to fix the calendar. Like you said, first and foremost, that's where it starts, is fixing the calendar. They need some type of regulation, man. I don't think we need unlimited transfers. Maybe you get that one free time transfer, and then maybe it's, well, if you transfer within conference, you sit out, or you got to do something to dial this in, man. It is just complete insanity right now.
Yeah, I mean, on the Rocky Top Rewind last Sunday night, that was like one of the last points that Brent and I talked about. We're talking about all these scenarios and answering all these questions, and I said, you know what? Maybe more than name, image, and likeness, maybe more than this rule or that rule or whatever. I think the thing that might have affected college athletics the most is the unlimited transfer, because that truly made it free agency every single year. And I'm with you, man. I mean, maybe this is a conversation for a bigger day, but I am fine 100% if guys want to transfer one time. I think it's a bit much to have guys, literally come in for a semester and say, okay, well, I'm going to get out of here. I mean, what Cam Carr, and again, everybody's got to do what they got to do, but what Cam Carr just did to Tennessee basketball, are you kidding me? Like, what on earth?
Well, look at Tennessee football. Again, you're playing Ohio State in the college football playoff, and I get it when you look at the guys that have entered the portal. It's not like it's a bunch of starters, but you have guys that played valuable snaps that entered the portal before that college football playoff game. Jalen Smith would have played in that game. Chaz Nimrod, would Caleb Webb have played in that game? I love, when Gaston Moore went in the portal, I love what you guys put out in the war room over at VolQuest this morning, basically saying that Gaston Moore wanted to go last year, but he stuck it out for his team. He stuck it out for his coach, for Josh Heupel. And then he hurt himself by waiting. He could have gone into the portal before the college football playoff game, but he finished what he started. He said he was going to go be the backup quarterback in the college football playoff. That's what he did. Then he went into the portal after. Man, go get yours. I would love to see Gaston Moore transfer down, get an opportunity, go be a starter, go play a full year of football, and then settle in and go be a coach, because I think that's what Gaston Moore's future looks like. But that's the few and far between, Kaner. When you guys put that out in the war room, I was like, man, that's a dude that competed for his team, stuck it out when he wanted to leave over a year ago. It's just not college football in 2024. That is not the norm.
No, you're exactly right. He is 100% the outlier. Thank goodness he stayed with Tennessee in the college football playoffs. I know Tennessee lost the game, and I know he didn't end up playing, but still, your starting quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, ran the football 20 times. And when you run the football 20 times, you get hit 20 times at least. And so, I mean, gosh, man, he was probably a hit or two away, and some of those looks were pretty tough. To where he might have had to come out of the football game. Briefly, since it's the first time on this show that we've talked on this platform, let's briefly just kind of touch on that Tennessee-Ohio State game. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it because obviously it was a week ago, but still, I think the disappointing thing is it stinks that Tennessee lost, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of people that picked against Tennessee in that game. Tennessee was a touchdown underdog. Tennessee was on the road. If Tennessee would have won the game, it wouldn't have been shocking, but Tennessee was supposed to lose this game. Boogie, it was the way Tennessee lost the game, man. 42-17. I mean, that just sucks, man. It was not one time a competitive football game, and that's really unfortunate, because where this roster and where this program is, it's better than that, but it didn't show on Saturday night.
Yeah, you and I had a good conversation on the phone when you were driving back from Columbus. We should have just hit record, and that should have been the show this morning. That was good talking points. And, one of the things that we brought up in that conversation on the phone was, like you just said, the way they lost. And that leaves a sour taste in your mouth the rest of the year. 10-2 college football playoff, that was kind of the goal for us as fans. Now, was that Josh Heupel's goal? Was that Nico's goal? Was that the locker room's goal? Absolutely not. SEC championship, national championship. Those were the goals on the board going into the season. But for us as fans, we if you had asked us before the year, 10-2 college football playoff, we're in. And I told you it was right before the game. It was an hour before kickoff. We're on the Talking Vols Network talking about it. Everybody in the chat, everybody on the panel, we're all in agreement. Hey, we made it. We love the way the coach is acting. We love the way that Heupel said, I'm not here for a cup of coffee. I'm here to go win this football game. We as fans were all in agreement. Goal achieved. Let's just go compete, win, lose, or draw. We're behind this team. Now here we sit. Tennessee gets whipped all over the field. It feels like the talent gap is huge. We're talking about firing coaches. We're talking about firing Tim Banks. Are you kidding me? A guy that all year long we have talked about how he and this defense is what got us to the dance. But now we panic, we freak out, and we're in for a long offseason of misery because 42-17 is going to be right up here in the back of the mind all offseason long.
It just kind of goes to show you that, short-term memories, obviously I have one, but didn't somebody put this on the board the other day? Didn't Ohio State get waxed by Missouri in whatever bowl game they played in last year? Am I remembering that correctly?
I don't remember the score. It was one of the 3 losses that Ryan Day's had in postseason against the SEC was Missouri. I don't remember the exact score though.
And that was a New Year's Six bowl game because that was the year Missouri gets cycled up. So again, it was Ohio State probably. Again, I'm not an Ohio State fan. I don't live in Columbus. I understand the outrage for Ryan Day because he still couldn't beat Michigan, but I don't remember all offseason long saying, Ohio State sucks. Ohio State's not that good, and so maybe we're all just, hyperbolic. I agree. Momentum-wise heading in the offseason, vibes are low because of the way you lost. I'm not saying it's not, but, will this mean, I'm just asking the question, I'm not disagreeing with you, will this mean it's going to be a long offseason? Because I think we often, Ohio State had that horrible loss in the New Year's Six bowl game, with Cotton Bowl, whatever it was, but it's nobody even talked about it.
Yeah, and I think it overcomplicates it with I know we're going to talk about the portal here in a second, but with the portal, right? Everybody's expecting this big wave in the portal that Tennessee's going to spend money, and that's coming from an On3 article that I made a video about. Well, Tennessee was predicted to be a big spender, and here we sit with one commitment. So I think when you layer the 42-17 loss on top of, we're adding an interior offensive lineman, Boogie, and that's it. We're sunk. We're done. Tennessee is back in the gutter. We're a basketball school. All the stuff. Again, it reminds me of the Purdue game, Heupel's first year. You had a good season that year. Then you go and lay an egg against Purdue. Purdue, guess what? Ohio State's not Purdue, but Ohio State is the goal. Ohio State is the next step. I think we saw a talent gap in that football game, and I think we've got to continue to recruit better. We got to continue to do better in the portal and kind of close that talent gap a little bit. But you guys on the Rocky Top Rewind talked a lot about these coaches too. They got to check themselves. They got to look themselves in the mirror, self-evaluate. That's something Coach Jay talks about all the time on the Talking Balls Network. He says, as a coach, after every year, I have to self-evaluate myself. What did I do well? What did I do weak? Where can we improve this football team? And I think Josh Heupel, particularly this offense, and then even Tim Banks in the big games, man, everybody's got to look themselves in the mirror and figure out how do we take that next step, because 10-2 college football playoffs, great. Guess what? Now we got to figure out how to go win the college football playoff.
Any part of life or aspect of your job or whatever that you do, if you're not doing some form of that, what you just said about self-scout, self-evaluate, are you fine with staying complacent? When I was at Carson Newman, every single year for the returning guys coming back, we did a huge self-scout right after the season was over. You dove deep into all your tape and say, I was awful here. I need to do this better. I need to do this better. Coaches do the same thing, because if you're not doing that as a coach, then you're just staying complacent. After this football season, which is now officially over, I'm going to go back and look at my coverage here on Locked On Vols and say, okay, well, I liked how I did that. Maybe we should move Boogie to Wednesdays. Just look around and do some stuff. We're not moving Boogie to Wednesdays. I love him on Fridays. But my point is kind of move around and see what works. And, you've got to do a self-scout. And I'm no football coach. Coach Jay knows a whole lot more than me, obviously, but I like to think I know football a little bit. And, in games against Georgia and in games against Ohio State, I'm sure they tried to do some different things, but from a pressure standpoint, it was not there. According to Pro Football Focus, you're getting beaten 42-17. You were down 21-0 in the first quarter, 31 dropbacks in the game for Will Howard. Tennessee blitzed 8 times. What are we doing? Stop being so complacent. Stop being so married to a scheme. We talk about that in Florida in 23. We talk about that in Georgia this past year, and it was Ohio State this year as well. Down 21-0 in the first quarter, 31 dropbacks in the game, you blitz 8 times. Why? According to the Pro Football Focus, Tennessee blitzed 40% of the time against Georgia, but I didn't see that. I'm not saying they didn't, but I didn't see that. I feel like defensively, I'm speaking right now. Obviously, we can have this talk about offense too, but defensively, I feel like you get too married to a certain scheme or game plan, and you don't adapt when things aren't going your way. That's, to me, what I want to see in the self-scout this offseason. Okay, maybe I need, as you would say, check myself, do this here. That's just selfishly for me, because, that was so frustrating this year.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it all leading up to the game. It felt exactly like Georgia. You got to get pressure on the quarterback, get after the quarterback. Didn't see it. I'm with you. I'd heard you talk about that with the Georgia game. It did not feel like they blitzed that much in that game. But if we can see it sitting on the couch eating potato chips watching a football game, you would think that Tim Banks can see it too. And it just feels like across the board, this coaching staff, when the moment is big, when they're on the stage, it seems like they go conservative. And that just doesn't seem like who Josh Heupel is. This Tim Banks defense just seems to thrive on aggression and chaos. And that's what we were sold when Tim Banks was brought in as the defensive coordinator. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to blitz. We're going to get after the quarterback. We don't see that in the big games. Is it a talent gap? Tennessee got whipped on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And that's where the game was finished. Like, they could not win the line of scrimmage. And case closed. That's it.
The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It truly is thrilling. Not only can you bet on who will win the football game or basketball game or baseball game or whatever you're betting on, FanDuel can also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, individual player props for quarters or halves, all that and more is over at FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Also, the safe, secure, easy-to-use app. Make every moment more with FanDuel. It's an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Boogie, when you look back at this year, if I were to say, hey, okay, I'm putting out an article sometime on Friday about the power rankings for Tennessee football this year. If I were to say, kind of rank these position groups, where would your offensive line come in? 1 through 9 of Tennessee's position groups, where would the offensive line come in?
I cannot sell this offensive line because it's a no-win situation. You lead the conference in rushing back-to-back years, your offensive line is doing something pretty good. But when you cannot protect the quarterback, and that was obviously a huge problem in that Ohio State game, you couldn't protect the quarterback. 1 through 9, gosh, this is hard. You should have prepped me for this because I gotta have everything laid out. I'm gonna put them in the middle of the pack. Like we need a board in front of me because I can't do this.
Tell me if you did you say 5? 5?
Yeah, I'm just guessing. Spitball.
Okay, so tell me if you disagree with these rankings, and you're right. I should have let you know. I'm sorry. I did. To go on the offensive line, I had the offensive line at number 3 because I pretty much said not only were you good running the football, but according to program history, you were elite, right? Since Tennessee football's kept stats, 2024 was the highest rushing total of 2,936 yards, the second highest rushing total in program history since 1951's 3,068 yards. So you were elite at running the football, just truly elite. But then it's like pass pro, man. Like against Power 4 competition, you really struggle in pass pro. So I kind of had to balance that out a little bit. And so I put the offensive line 3 behind the defensive line, noting in the defensive line in the big games you didn't show up, and that was disappointing. And then those 2 behind the running backs because, running backs are clearly the best position group on the team. So I had the offensive line at 3. Like I wanted to recognize what it did very well because it did do it at an elite level. But also, I needed to weigh it out. Like, I mean, the pass pro was not where it needed to be. Is that fair? Is that too high?
See, I would maybe put defensive line number 1. Defensive line number 1. And I agree with you. They didn't show up in the big games. So guess what? Nobody showed up in the big games. Mm-hmm. Now, offensive line up there, running backs up there, of course. But then I always go back to, do we need an elite running back in this system? Is the reason that we lead the conference in rushing because of Josh Heupel's offense, right? It's set up to win, get a numbers advantage in the box and run the football. And if you could win your one-on-ones, we would have been able to run the football against Ohio State, but you couldn't win your one-on-ones. You were getting whipped 5-on-4. Like, come on. You got no shot there. So is the offensive line, are they the reason for the success running the football? Is Dylan Sampson the reason for the success running the football? And yeah, I think Dylan Sampson's a really good running back. But I also think some of that is Josh Heupel's scheme.
No, I would agree. I mean, the scheme-wise, you can run the football. In Tennessee, that's why, Josh Heupel's been able to run the football pretty well at a high rate all 4 years he's been here. Tennessee had Jabari Small and Tyon Evans year 1, and then it was Jabari Small and Jalen Wright year 2. And, Jabari Small, Jalen Wright, and Dylan Sampson year 3, and then here Dylan Sampson this past year. And I noted here in the running back section, even when Dylan Sampson, when Deshaun Bishop, who proved that he can play at this level, was out, Peyton Lewis steps up, and Peyton Lewis was pretty good. He was a true freshman, missed all of spring. I thought Darrell Sims had a pretty good year coaching those running backs because I thought that Tennessee proved that they had some depth. But to your point as well, I do think this scheme it's a run-happy scheme, right? And if you have a guy that's got good vision, good patience, ball security, and obviously some athletic ability, I think that you can be successful. I'm not trying to take anything away from Dylan Sampson. He was an absolute animal this year. But I do think that this offense is set up to kind of run the football pretty well. Where would you rank the wide receivers?
See, I'm just not prepared for this at all. Numbers-wise, they're towards the bottom, man. Like, it's it's just so bad. Wide receiver, quarterback plays got to be down there. The passing game, lumped as a whole, has got to be down there towards the bottom. Like the wide receivers are not who we thought they were. And again, you got to put a big asterisk beside it because Squirrel White was never 100%. But he was out there trying to give it a go, and I appreciate the toughness. I admire the toughness, but I think that hurt this wide receiver group a little bit. Chris Brazzell, I think he needs another year in the system. We saw Dante Thornton start to come on at the end of year 1. We also saw a little bit of that with Chris Brazzell. So does he take a big step next year? But I think there's a reason. Brew McCoy, gone. Dante Thornton, gone. And then you're seeing this mass exodus of wide receivers in the room because I think it's like the secondary a year ago. We're trying to upgrade at that wide receiver position. Now, if Mike Matthews isn't who we think he is, if Braylon Staley isn't who we think he is, at what point do you start to say, can Kelsey Pope develop talent? I think that's a fair conversation to have at this point. But I think Kelsey Pope also deserves another year to see what he can do with Mike Matthews, to see what he can do with Chris Brazzell in year 2, see what he can do with Braylon Staley. But as a whole group for the year, wide receivers, linebackers, down there at the bottom somewhere.
Like, it's always fun to write these articles, but then when you're starting and going in reverse order, 9, 8, 7, like the worst to the best, it's like, oh, it's a little rude what I'm writing here. It's a little mean. Is that too harsh? It's like
I know I felt bad just saying quarterback down at the bottom. Nico's the only guy that showed up in the Ohio State game. And I think Nico got better as the year went on. But I think the expectations that we set for Nico are what leading into some of this conversation that he wasn't who we thought he was. But guess what? He's also a redshirt freshman. Future's bright.
And also, anybody with a functioning brain could have told you he was not going to win the Heisman this year. I guess he could have, but and that's. The fact that he didn't doesn't mean that he's awful, but it's just like, come on, guys, To your point, I had quarterbacks, Nico, at number 6, which I thought was way too low, but I'm like, well, it's probably about right because, like you said, with the aerial stuff, I had the wide receivers last.
That's fair.
Wide receivers last.
Wide receivers are linebackers down there at the bottom.
And that's here. And I put the linebackers at number 8, and I literally lead off. I said this might be a bit harsh for the linebackers considering the defense was really good in 2024, but the group wasn't the same after the loss of Keenan Peely, as the ABC broadcast would reiterate again, even though the game's over. At special teams at number 7, and honestly, it's just because it was a couple of games where penalties and the fact that you didn't kick it out of bounds stuck out. And of course, that stretch where Max Gilbert went through that rough patch, but overall, I think special teams, again, another solid year. Quarterbacks at number 6 for me. Defensive backs at number 5. Tight ends at number 4. Offensive line 3. Defensive line 2. Running backs at number 1, like I mentioned. I just want to throw that out at you, Boogie.
Good conversation. You just can't ask me where to rank the offensive line 1 through 9 on the fly.
True. I just thought the offensive line was interesting because, again, like I said, what's our lasting memory of them, and what's a memory we have all season long, not being able to stand up your quarterback and pass pro. But then you look down, it's like, well, we knew Tennessee's a good running team, but how good? Second best in program history. That is elite. So the balance in that regard, I thought was kind of interesting. Transfer portal. At the time of this recording, Tennessee has 1 addition via the transfer portal. Tennessee has lost, I think, 11. And again, it's a mile a minute and things can change by the time I hit publish on the show. We know the deal. Okay. But to this point, you haven't lost anybody that was just huge, right? You've lost some depth pieces, and I'm not saying that they're not guys that you want to hold on to, but, Gaston Moore, and hope he goes down there and, transfers and plays and balls out, and hope he's the group of 5 Jameis Winston, as I've seen on Twitter, right? But you have 2 quarterbacks that are going to be your backup. You've got, backup running backs, and you've got backup, you have Holden Staves, who played a ton that plans to enter the transfer portal, but, Miles Kitselman's likely coming back now since Diego Pavia won his lawsuit against NCAA, and you still have Ethan Davis, so that's not a huge blow, right? it feels like you're going to hold on to your receivers, the ones who haven't left, the Mike Matthews in the world. And it seems like Aaron Carter's in good shape. I haven't heard a word about Boo Carter. Like, overall, it's been good so far, but you still haven't added much to your roster, Boogie, and hopefully Tennessee will get ready to go in that regards this weekend and maybe next week.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the concern lies, is that you've not added anybody. Maybe a little concerned with the wide receivers because four guys, plus you're losing Brew McCoy, right? You're losing Dante Thornton. So you look at that room next year and you got Chris Brazzell, Squirrel White, Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley. It's like, there's no depth there. Like, and I get it. Are you going to lean on those freshman wide receivers? Travis Smith, stud, top 100 dude, ranked 71st with the On3 industry rankings. So Brad Jackson, I think, can be a good guy. But are these guys, are those freshmen ready to come in and contribute as true freshmen? Because we've not seen it in this offense that freshmen are coming in and playing wide receiver for Josh Heupel. But you've other than that, man, you've not lost a whole lot, like you said. Holden Stace, I like that Ethan Davis. My fear was that Ethan Davis was going to transfer, and I'm glad that he's not the one that entered the portal. But you've added a guard on the interior of the offensive line with Wendell Moy Jr. We're going to be doing a film breakdown over on Talking Vols. We're going to look at his Arizona film. Coach Jay is going to break it down. He likes Wendell Moy Jr. He likes his game. You talking about the offensive line there a little bit earlier. I think it's interesting to look at the guys that they're targeting in the portal. His PFF pass blocking grade, 88.3. That's interesting. You look at Josh Thompson, the kid from Northwestern, everything that was happening there. We thought he was a lock. He was trending. The predictions are coming in. Now he's getting those phone calls. We'll see what happens there. But he's a guy that has I think it was an 18-game no sack streak. Again, guys that can protect the quarterback. That's interesting. That's worth noting. We all said going into this portal chaos, we got to have some guys on the interior of the offensive line. If they get Josh Thompson, that's a win on the interior of the offensive line. Plus, does Carrick get that extra year of eligibility? If he does, all of a sudden you can start looking at this offensive line and saying, okay, I see that this could be pretty good in 2025. But what we're waiting for is that big money guy. We're waiting for that big play wide receiver. We're waiting for that running back, that guy that when you see the name, you get that wow factor. You don't have to go to Google and see who Wendell Moy Jr. is. You don't have to go to Google and see who Josh Thompson is. You see the name, you go, that's the dude. That's the dude that the On3 article was talking about. And who knows, I don't know where that information came from when they put out and said Tennessee's going to be one of the big spenders. Are they? Are they going to be one of the big spenders? And I get it. What is today? The 27th. Portal closes tomorrow. But then you got those windows of guys in the college football playoff, 5-day window after those teams lose. Any coaching changes, you're going to have opportunities to sign guys. But I think the panic, those that are panicked, it's because we've not seen that big money spender yet.
Yeah, and I think that the basis of that story that you're referencing just comes from, all right, well, which programs around the country has a steady and a really, really good go-getting collective? I mean, Tennessee's proven that that's the collective over the years, right? And so I think that's why Tennessee's kind of one of the first teams mentioned. And it's all about strategy. I mean, everybody on your roster wants raises, and I'm sure that's the same way at South Carolina. I'm sure it's the same way at Ole Miss, even though Ole Miss has brought in dang near 20 guys for the portal. But how many have they lost? I don't know. I mean, how many big spenders are off their roster now from last year? A couple for sure, right? Walter Nolan, Jackson Dart, so on and so forth. Boogie, as always, man, this is our third season that we've kind of collaborated, man. It's been a blast. Really enjoy this. We'll talk time to time. It won't be an every Friday thing anymore, but obviously, big stuff happening, spring practice and everything. But listeners of Locked On Vols, hopefully that you tuned in and started being a part of the Talking Vols family. Kind of give us your off-season schedule, if you will, if you have it so far, when you guys are going to be on the air.
It's kind of sporadic as we go into the offseason. We start focusing on roster management, whether that be the portal or recruiting. But then we got Coach Jay, who he's a D3 analyst out in California. Got the promotion this year, went up to the D3 level as an analyst on defense. And he comes on and he breaks down film, man. And he is really good at he's technical. He's always scared to be too technical. He's technical, but he dumbs it down so us not casual fans, but guys that aren't X's and O's guys can understand it. I throw a lot of questions at him, explain this to the common man, but he's really good at what he does. Again, we're going to start with Wendell Moy Jr. We're going to hit some portal targets. We're going to hit some guys in the class of 25. It's full steam ahead for recruiting. We're going to do live commitments, right? David Sanders, when he committed, we're watching it, and we're not streaming it. We're not hosting it. But it's like hanging out with your boys, waiting to see if the number one offensive tackle in the country is going to commit to the good guys. And it's always a good time, man. We're about 300 subscribers away from 30,000. That was the goal, 30,000 by the end of 2024. If you're not a part of the Talking Vols Network, come check it out for the fans, by the fans. It's always a good time over there.
28, 29, 30, 30. You got 4 days. 4 days to get 300. That's very doable. So if you're listening, if you're watching, and you're not subscribed to Locked On Vols, go ahead and take care of business first. Also, go ahead and subscribe over to Talking Vols. Boogie and the boys do a really, really good job, man. All right. Boogie, as always, dude, thanks so much, and we'll chat at some point here coming up the next couple weeks, all right?
Yeah, appreciate it, man. One last thing, we're definitely going to do the charity stream again for Fisher House Foundation, so we want you to be a part of it. The guys at VolQuest, all the big guys in the media, we're going to raise as much money as we can for Fisher House Foundation. It's like a Ronald McDonald House for the men and women of our troops. That'll be coming shortly after the national championship, so be looking for that.
Yep, looking forward to that. Always enjoy doing that, so can't wait to join, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
Great stuff there from Boog Bentley. Appreciate his collaboration and partnership throughout football season, and hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. Just kind of tying a bow on the Tennessee football season. Hey, on Monday's Locked On Vols, we'll hit the transfer portal, what happened over the weekend, any more departures, any more arrivals, all that and more. Plus, we'll get into our first phase of the offseason content, looking back at the 2024 season, the highs, the lows, the uglies, and the pretties, all that and more. We're still talking football 5 days a week right here on Locked On Vols. Doesn't matter the offseason, end season. We'll touch baseball and, of course, your number one ranked Tennessee basketball team as well. Your number one spot that has not changed for Tennessee athletics coverage is right here on Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys again. Merry Christmas weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week. This is Locked On Vols.